My neighbors must think I'm crazy.
Being hurt sucks. Being hurt means you can't do the things that you love to do. It means you have to take some time off playing some basketball with your friends. It means maybe you have to postpone that marathon to next year. But if being hurt meant you're not able to go on the floor and play with your child, that would really suck. Now every sport has its own set of risks when you play them, like basketball with ACL ruptures or soccer with hamstring strains. But parenting, as I have come to realize, is no different. Parenting is a sport. I mean, think about it. You're actually holding a weight in your arms for extended periods of time. You're dodging obstacles. You're picking stuff up off the floor. You know, it requires a certain amount of skill and athleticism in order to perform it well. And just like any other sport, you want to learn the skills required for that specific sport and train your body to be ready to endure that sport. Now, where are some common areas that parents hurt? So number one, low back pain. Think about it, this really makes a lot of sense because you're bending over and over again, picking stuff off the ground, picking up your kid off the ground, making sure that they're not going to bang their heads or you're just going to go and grab them off the ground. Again, most of the time you're bending over when you do this. And bending over and over again is not necessarily the best thing for your back, especially if you don't do it correctly. Because if you do this over and over again, we can get something called a discogenic low back pain, which means that we're getting back pain caused by the disc itself in the back. And over time, what can happen is a disc herniation. And that's when we get the sciatica type symptoms going down your leg, and that requires quite a bit of rehabilitation afterwards. Now, another area that hurts in parents is the shoulder. You're carrying your child on your arm for a long period of time, and after a while, this is gonna start bugging your arm because it's just a sustained contraction of your muscles where you're just holding it up. And not only are you just holding that weight, your baby, in your arms, your baby's moving around like crazy. So it's not just as simple as holding a weight, but they're moving around. So you really need to make sure your shoulder is strong to keep this area from stopping to hurt. And not only that, when the shoulder hurts, oftentimes the neck will start to hurt as well because they are very interconnected, these two. So this can also lead to a little bit of neck pain as well. Let's look at some ways where we can actually improve the quality of our movements. Now, bending over in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. However, if you perform that movement incorrectly, that can put more stress on your low back. So learning how to move correctly, improving the quality of that motion is one of the more important things. So that's what we're going to look at next. Now let's learn the basics, how to actually bend over. It might seem silly, but most people don't bend over correctly because what you don't want to do is bend over with your back rounded like so. This is not good for your low back. It doesn't like it. Just trust me on this one. A much safer way to bend over is with a neutral back. Now, this is a little bit easier said than done, especially if this is something you've never really done before. Now, a really good and easy way to learn how to do this is to grab a stick. So grab a dowel, grab a broom handle, whatever. Now, what you're gonna do is bring this behind your back like so. So what the stick does is actually monitor your movement. What you wanna do is make sure that the stick is touching the back of your head, your upper back, and your tailbone. So these are our 3 points of contact. Now, holding the stick in place, we're just going to bend over. So as we bend over, we want to make sure that the stick remains in those 3 points of contact. Because if it doesn't, then we know that we're not doing the movement correctly. Now at the bottom of this movement, what you should be feeling is just a little bit of a hamstring stretch. If you're feeling a hamstring stretch, you're likely doing this well. Another thing that you want to do when you're bending over like that is brace your core. Now, bracing your core does not mean pulling the belly button in. It doesn't mean ballooning everything outwards. It just means to stiffen. So think about it this way. When somebody's about to punch you in the gut, what are you going to do? You're going to squeeze this area here. So that's what you're going to do. You don't need to squeeze at 100% your max. Squeezing 10-20% of your max is perfectly acceptable. So brace, make sure that we have all 3 points of contact, and bend over this way. That's how you bend over. Now, utilizing what we just learned, we want to make sure that we brace our core and that we make sure that when we bend over, we have a neutral spine, and we're starting to feel a little bit of a hamstring pull here. So when we're bending over to grab stuff off the floor, I know my back is safe. With these guys that's a little bit further down, it's kind of hard to do a full hip hinge all the way down here. So what you can do in this case is actually kneel down, still maintaining that brace, and then lean forward and grab the stuff. So when you're doing this, you're still making sure that your back is in that neutral posture. You're still bracing your abdomen as you're doing this. Another way, of course, is you can actually just squat all the way down instead of kneeling down. So when you're squatting all the way down, making sure, once more, that you're bracing here and that you're not sinking in. So you want to make sure that you still maintain that neutral spine as you squat down and grab the things that you need on the floor. Same rules apply if you're holding your baby and you need to pick something off the ground. Because I don't know how many times I've held my child and she's just dropped her teether or something on the floor and I've had to bend over to pick it up. So just because you're holding your baby doesn't mean you have to ignore the rules. Still hold them, and you can bend over, do a deadlift even, or a squat, and just grab the things that you need. Yes, I put a onesie on a kettlebell. I also put a onesie on a medicine ball. Even when you bring your baby into the car seat, make sure you hold your baby close to you and not put the weight too far in front of you. Again, because that's going to put a little bit more stress on your back. Even put your foot up on here if you need to, just to keep a proper hip hinge. Even as you're buckling your baby in, you want to make sure that you keep a proper hip hinge. You're not leaning over too far, because again, we don't want to strain our back. Now, most athletes have a strength and conditioning program. And a good strength and conditioning program, or training program, or exercise, or working out, basically what it does, it helps to prepare your body for your sport. Now, for a basketball player, you want to make sure you jump higher, you want to make sure you're very agile. For parents, you want to make sure that the main moves that we do, such as bending over oftentimes, picking stuff off the ground, holding a weight in front of you while squatting, you want to make sure that when we do our exercise and when we do train, when we do work out, we want to make sure that we're doing things that'll help us in our sport. Remember, parenting is a sport. So adding these exercises to your training schedule will help make you a better parent. So I have my trusty kettlebell baby here. One of the first moves that we want to do is called an RDL, or a Romanian deadlift. A Romanian deadlift is essentially that hip hinge motion that we did, but we're gonna add some added weight to it as well. And this is a great exercise to really strengthen your whole posterior chain, and it's a very good one. So what you wanna do, hold a kettlebell or a weight in front of you here, and essentially, the same move that we did earlier, the hip hinge, bending over, that's the exact move. You're just gonna be doing this. Now, when you're down here, what you want to make sure you're doing is make sure that the weight is between your feet or between your heels. So you want to make sure that the weight is really close to you. Because if the weight's too far away as you're doing this, that puts a lot more stress on your low back and you're going to start getting some low back pain. So, like that. That's a great exercise to add to your regime. Another one is just the sumo deadlift. So a sumo deadlift is when the weight is between your legs and your legs are a little bit more spread out. So what you're gonna do, again, same type of hip hinge, bend over, grab the weight, and pull up. Down, touch the weight to the ground, come up. This is probably one of the most sport-specific moves there is the goblet squat. So what you're gonna do is hold the kettlebell out in front of you, and you're just going to be performing squats. So again, making sure that you keep a nice neutral back throughout the entire movement. Now, it's happened to me several times where I'm holding my child and she's dropped something on the floor and I need to bend over and actually pick it up. So this exercise is a great way to help train that. So it's the unilateral goblet squat. So what you're gonna do is just clean your baby. Don't actually clean your baby like do a kettlebell. This is a joke. Then you're just gonna be doing a squat. And for added bonus, you can actually, pick up a toy off the floor, to really mimic what this exercise is intended to help you with. Another exercise, just plain old bicep curls. Because again, you're holding your baby on your arms here. You need to have some pretty strong biceps in order to, do that well. You can just do isometrics. So you're just holding the weight like that out in front of you. A great exercise for the shoulder and making sure that your shoulder is good and strong is just a rack hold. So just bringing the kettlebell into the rack position and just holding it here. Make sure that your elbow is not tucked in. So if it's tucked in this way, you're essentially just resting the shoulder, and that kind of defeats the purpose of this particular exercise. So standing up nice and tall, make sure your core is braced, and just hold this position for a good 20, 30, 40 seconds. To make this even harder, you can bring this weight out to the side as well. So this is called a waiter carry. And as you can see, because the weight is a little bit further away, it stresses my shoulder muscles just a little bit more. I do realize I've been a little bit silly in this video, dressing up a medicine ball and a kettlebell in my daughter's old onesies and whatnot, but this is an important topic that nobody's really talking about. I mean, there are plenty of articles out there talking about how to prevent injuries in children playing sports or preventing low back pain in the workforce or things like that. But we want to make sure that how we move in our everyday lives, you know, playing with our kids on the floor, moving them around, picking stuff off of the ground, all of that contributes to how you develop pain, essentially. And if we make sure that we move our bodies well and that we exercise and prep our bodies to make sure that our bodies are strong and resilient to these stresses, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to roll around the floor and play with your kids, and hopefully your grandkids as well. I mean, look, quite frankly, as a new dad, one of the things that would really break my heart the most would be not being able to play on the floor with my child because my back hurts. So do yourselves a favor, please invest in yourself to learn how to move well, get to the gym, get strong so your body becomes resilient, and then you can just play on the floor with your kids worry-free. Well, that's the end of this video. If you liked it, got something out of it, please give it a like. I would really appreciate it. Please subscribe to my channel because more stuff like this is going to be coming along. And until next time, I'm going to go work out.